Well, greeting, friends. Good to be with you again today, and little devotional thought to share with you, and to answer a question too that somebody had submitted. And the question came in, Pastor Wayne, what is the technique that you use for memorizing Bible verses? It seems to be like when we're in Fireside Faith class or elsewhere that you can pretty easily recall verses, and so I'll share that with you today. Excuse the hat. I've got hat hair today from I wore a hat on the way in, and so I've hat hair, and such is life. But let's get right down to it, and I'll give you some example, a real practical example. But first, to tell you where in the world I even got this technique and developed it. Some of you know that years ago, when I first started my pilgrimage with the Lord, I was involved with a ministry called the Navigators, and they're based in Colorado Springs, and they do a lot of work on college campuses and on military bases. And my first exposure with them was on a military base when I was in the Air Force back in the 70s. Hence the hat, Cold War veteran. Some guys went to Nam, and I went, and with, like many others, dealt with the Russian threat that was happening at the same time. So at any rate, let's take a look at it. And with the Navigators, there are a couple of courses that I want to recommend to you. And one of them incorporates right in the course the technique that I'm going to show you for memorizing Scripture. And some of you have home Bible studies, or you're considering starting one. And now that things are lightening up a little bit with COVID, and you might want to have some friends over to your home. And one of the courses I would want to recommend to you is this from the Navigators. It's called Growing Strong in God's Family. It's actually part of a 3-book series, Deepening Your Roots in God's Family, and then the 3rd book in the series is Bearing Fruit in God's Family. All of them are outstanding. They're only a 10-week course, and this is a valuable tool. It's kind of a homework style, and fill in the blank, and then you come to your session together and you walk through it and talk about what you learned, you pray together, and just a great tool, a great course. Each session you'd have would, if you had a home group, you'd maybe do the study 45 minutes, and then you'd have a few minutes, however much time you wanted to take to be praying together, and then you could also have a snack time before you head out and have a nice hour-and-a-half fellowship time. So this is a course I would highly, highly recommend that you consider. Growing Strong in God's Family is available from the Navigators and also their Church Discipleship Ministries department. So that said, let me share with you the technique that I use, and it's outlined, of course, in this course, as I said. And the technique is called fore and aft. And it's always important to remember, when I memorize a verse, it's important to memorize the address. What is the address? Well, the address is the Scripture reference. So the verse I want to share with you, for example, is 2 Timothy 3:16. And it reads like this. And I'll read this from the King James Version. You have to pick a translation that you want to memorize from. One of the reasons I memorize from the King James Version is this. When I'm quoting a verse or referring to a verse or even paraphrase a verse from the King James Version, and I'm sharing with people that are not at all familiar with the Bible, they recognize right away, oh, that sounds like the Bible. And I don't have to argue with them, yeah, that really is in the Bible, because it already sounds like King James-ish language that they probably have someplace been familiar with. It helps them to be able to not have to confront, is that really the Bible that you're quoting? So this verse goes like this. All Scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness. So you can see that Paul is teaching this young pastor Timothy some specific details, and he's saying that the Scriptures here are valuable for, indeed, 4 things that are very important for all believers. So here's how I memorize it. I always say the address verse. 2 Timothy 3:16. All scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, reproof, correction, and instruction in righteousness. 2 Timothy 3:16. The Word. So you heard me say the address, I say the verse, I say the address again, and then I say a topic that I've attached to that verse. And the topic I gave it here is the Word. So simple way to memorize scripture, and it really helps you recall those verses. So say, for example, you're talking with somebody about the Bible, about the Word. Just the fact that you're talking about that topic is going to cause this verse that you've memorized to jump into your consciousness, into your thinking as you're interacting with that person. So again, you say the address, 2 Timothy 3:16, recite the verse, and then say the address again, and then attach a topic. And one more thing that I've done that really has helped is also writing out by pen or pencil on a paper, writing that verse out several times. And it just, because it's a pencil in hand, it just helps solidify it in your thinking. So a little bit of a technique that I use, and it's been fruitful for me over the years. All scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness. And verse 17 continues, that the man of God might be perfect, thoroughly equipped for all good works. 2 Timothy 3:16 and 17. So my email address is here. I invite you to suggest other questions that you might want me to tackle here. And it's always a joy to share with you. By the way, some of you also asked, is that candy bar still there? Yes, the Babe Ruth continues to survive, sitting right here on my desk, right in front of me. And I put it down right here where it's been sitting. And just the fact of having that candy bar there challenges me to do less candy. And I see it in front of me as a temptation. And another verse that I could share with you another time, I've learned to say no to temptation. And it's important that we were able to do that from Titus chapter 3. At any rate, friends, that's enough for today. And I encourage you that if you're considering getting going with a small group, please do consider this Growing Strong in God's Family from the Navigators. And very easy. In fact, there also is a leader's guide in the back with some tips on how to even conduct your small group. So I would highly, highly recommend this and encourage you. You know, this is springtime, and maybe before summer starts, it'd be a great time to do a little 10-week study with some friends. Invite them over to your house on a Tuesday afternoon or Tuesday evening, or meet at a cafe someplace and do a Bible study together. These books are inexpensive, probably about $10 a piece. What is that, $1 a lesson? And then you have a book that you've journaled in. You've written answers and thoughts as you've wrestled with exciting material. So this is a great way to start, and if your group loves it so much, you'll want to continue on to book 2 and then probably eventually book 3. Great series, great study, great tools for modern men. You know, we live in a day and age that we need to have those types of foundation stones well set in our lives. So thank you for tuning in and checking this out. Again, my email address is there, and I welcome any and all questions, and I'll do my best to go ahead and fire away some thoughts and answers, and we'll see you next time. God bless you, friends. Until then, stay strong in the things of the Lord. Blessings. We'll see you next time.